Multiverse, the sequel on the Postmodern Anomaly channel. Yes, I found it important enough to bring it up again about the multiverse. I'm making this video because I made an earlier one claiming that the multiverse theory both promises our survival and our destruction as a species. Why? Because in quantum mechanics, if you have a probability of, say, 1 in a million, then all million will happen simultaneously in a different universe. That would mean that no matter how small the probability, in some alternate universe, humanity would survive. And some people replied directly to this video, and they said that this was just a number game that physicists like to play. Some replied that, well, what if you have a probability less than 0, and that probability is humanity's survival? Now, here's my response. The chances of this universe we live in, even being here, is 1 in 10 to the negative 120th power. That's 1 in 10 to the negative 120th power. It's an extremely, extremely small number. And as you will see, this number cannot just be arbitrarily given, and that is why the multiverse should make sense to atheists. It excludes any mystical thinking and doesn't make it look like we live in a universe of fine-tuning. It just shows that this is one chance among many chances. It is the chance of 1 in 10 to the negative 120th power. So watch this video, and I'll be back.
Our universe seems to be defined by a set of numbers which in some sense look special. If we had different numbers, we would end up with a sterile universe. People react to this seeming coincidence in a number of ways. You could say it's the outcome of some kind of design or providence. We could say it's a brute fact we have to accept, because these numbers might be determined by some theory which we haven't yet discovered.
For a while it was possible to believe that the laws of nature were not so precisely set as to require the hand of a creator. But then a completely new fundamental property of the universe was discovered. An anti-gravity force present in space itself. It is called the Cosmological Constant, and when cosmologists calculated its effect on the evolution of the universe, they realized it had to be very finely tuned indeed.
The fine-tunings, how fine-tuned are they? Most of them are 1% sort of things. In other words, if a thing is 1% different, everything is bad. And the physicist could say, maybe those are just luck. On the other hand, this cosmological constant is tuned to 1 part and 10 to the 120, 120 decimal places. Nobody thinks that's accidental. Nobody thinks that's accidental. Nobody thinks that's accidental. That is not a reasonable idea, that something is tuned to 120 decimal places just by accident. That's the most extreme example of fine-tuning.
No force in the history of cosmology has ever been discovered to be that finely tuned. The cosmological constant needs to be set to 1 part in a trillion. Otherwise the universe would be so drastically different that it would be impossible for us to evolve. That the cosmological constant arrived at such a tiny value by chance seemed to be out of the question, but the alternative explanation was also impossible to contemplate.
Physicists did not want to accept the idea that the laws of nature might be controlled by well, the benevolence of nature. There should be no reason why the luck should just have it that we can exist. It's too much.
The scientists were between a rock and a hard place. Their own discoveries were pointing them towards an intelligent designer.
This is its dislike of mixing religion into physics. I think they were somewhat afraid that if it was admitted that the reason the world is the way it is has to do with our own existence, that could be hijacked by the creationists, by the intelligent designers. And of course, what they would say is, yes, we always told you so.
I think it is a scientific question which deserves to be addressed by cosmologists.
And cosmologists have found a solution to the fine-tuning problem. It is simple and elegant, but it requires a leap of faith as profound as any religious belief. If our planet is not alone, if it is one of billions of planets, orbiting billions of stars in hundreds of billions of galaxies inside our universe, could our universe also be one of many?
And therefore, it would not be at all surprising if there should be one universe that was tuned.
If our laws of nature are only one set of values amongst a limitless possibility of others, then the fine-tuning of our universe once again falls within the laws of chance. Our law of gravity would be but one of trillions of different values for gravity. The same goes for the cosmic constant, for atomic charge, even the numbers of dimensions. Suddenly, amongst all the many possibilities, it's not so surprising that at least one possesses the precise set of laws that allow human beings to evolve.
And there's no reason to be disappointed with one particular outcome or another, because quantum mechanics suggests that each of the possibilities, like getting a yellow juice or a red juice, may actually happen. They just happen to happen in universes that are parallel to ours, universes that seem as real to their inhabitants as our universe seems to us.
If there are 1,000 possibilities and quantum mechanics cannot with certainty say which of the 1,000 it will be, then all 1,000 will happen. Yeah, you can laugh at it and say, well, that has to be wrong. But there are so many other things in physics which at the time that people came up with had to be wrong, but it wasn't. You have to be a little careful, I think, before you say this is clearly
Now,
wrong.
this multiverse theory isn't only applied to the cosmological constant. Many people also apply it to history. Many people claim that in some parallel universe, the universe becomes even more finely tuned. For instance, in one universe, the Cuban Missile Crisis actually escalated into a nuclear war, and you were never born. Others will include a future where humanity does inevitably die out as the probabilities play itself out. But the very low probability that mankind will survive will inevitably happen. I bet you any money in this cosmic casino of survival that we're in, that it's better than the 1 in 10 to the negative 120th power. Okay, I bet you the survival of humanity is a lot greater than 1 in 10 to the negative 120th power that exists for our universe to even exist. So I would say it's pretty much there, and that probability is almost zero. So for those of you saying, what about the zero probability? That's pretty damn close to zero. You know, so if it's even that small, it'll still happen. Humanity will survive. So if you ever did care about the destination of mankind, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. I know that the majority of you watching this video already were and don't really care. So with that, I'll leave you with this final musing about our place in the universe.
Yet some cosmologists still see a greater meaning in our existence. They do not agree that we are coincidental to the universe. The universe, they argue, is irrelevant without us.
If you look at the cosmos, right, sure, we're small, but suppose there were no life in the universe. Wouldn't all this beautiful stuff out there be a complete waste if there were no one there to behold it? I think so. I think it's only life which gives any sort of meaning to the universe.